Star Trek Resurgence was recently released on Steam after being exclusive to the Epic Games Store on PC since its launch. A little while back, it also saw an update and native PS5 version, after initially only seeing console releases on the Series X and S consoles and the PlayStation 4. This update served to squash a lot of its bugs and generally make the game run more smoothly. So with all its issues ironed out and the game being easier to access than ever, now is the perfect time to dive in to what I would call one of the best Star Trek games in a while, assuming you don't mind the telltale narrative-driven style. But whether you're a Trek aficionado or this is your first voyage into the final frontier, I thought it might be helpful to know what this game is all about, who it involves, and also where it sits in the Trek timeline. So with all that in mind, here's a quick lore primer for Star Trek Resurgence. Star Trek Resurgence begins in 2380, placing it 3 years after the end of Star Trek Voyager in the Prime timeline. At this time, the Federation are dealing primarily with Romulan-related problems, along with continuing reconstruction efforts after the Dominion War. The game follows the crew of the USS Resolute, a Centaur-class refit medium cruiser that is just about to return to service. Built initially for combat during the Dominion War, the Resolute was repurposed after the war's end as a science vessel. Less than a year before the events of the game take place, the Resolute was dispatched by Starfleet Command to the Tellarian Republic border region in order to locate and save Dr. Leah Brahms, a leading Starfleet scientist and engineer who it was believed at the time had been captured by the Tellarians. However, upon arrival, the crew soon learned that Dr. Brahms was actually working with the Tellarians voluntarily, having developed a new version of the same warp engine design that she'd created for both the Galaxy-class and the Nebula-class Starfleet ships. Both her and the Resolute's captain, Captain Zachary Solano, decided to use the new warp core in order to increase the Resolute's speed, an act met with much controversy by its crew. When things became further complicated by a confrontation with the Tellarian warlord, the situation became desperate. While ultimately Solano and Brahms' plan was successful, the Resolute's new modified warp engine would buckle under the pressure, causing it to breach. Due to the manner of both the installation and the nature of the breach, warp core ejection was impossible, and a saucer section separation was ordered. Several of the crew, including the previous first officer, XO Luke Sutherland, remained to oversee the secondary hull, flying it directly into the Tellarian warlord and killing everyone on board in the process. While Captain Solano offered his resignation as penance for the entire affair, Starfleet refused, at least in part it seems, because the mission to save Dr. Brahms was never officially logged in the first place. After months of reconstruction, we find the Resolute at the beginning of Resurgence, just about to take its first flight since the incident, with both the game's protagonists, the lower deck crewman Carter Diaz, and the replacement first officer Jara Rydek in place. Diaz served on the Resolute previously, and so, like the rest of the crew, continues to harbour memories of that last mission and everything that went wrong. Rydek, on the other hand, is in a different situation entirely. A top student at the Academy, and one of Starfleet's finest young officers, she joins the crew in the unenviable position of replacing a beloved first officer who died protecting everyone on board. As a half-human, half-Kobliad, she also requires regular treatments of diridium to stabilise her cell structure. As the Resolute leaves on its first diplomatic mission, things are not what they seem in this part of the galaxy. And that's all you need to know before playing Star Trek Resurgence. I'll keep the rest of the plot of the main game a secret as I don't want to spoil anything, but expect to see some familiar elements in the 10-ish hours or so it takes to experience this story. If you have any other lore questions about Resurgence or anything Trek, then let me know in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. Oh, and maybe also drop a like and a sub if you can, and let's get the word out to other Trek fans that you might know. It really helps the channel. Until next time, live long and prosper.